Shwmai a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Hello and welcome to another expressive arts edition of the Sgwrs podcast series. Today I'm going to be talking to Jo Gold, Head of Art at a Pant comprehensive school. She's led a very successful department for many years, and today I'm going to ask her how to do it.
Hi, I'm Jo Gold. I'm Head of Art here at a Pant comprehensive school. My role is to lead and manage the art department. We're a small department. We're made up of 3 team members, including myself. I'm part-time, as one other colleague, and then we have 1 full-time teacher.
You've been teaching at a Pant since 2003, so that's a long time leading a successful department. But it wasn't your first job, was it? Where did you start teaching?
No, second. Back in Bedfordshire, an upper school, which in actual fact was a bit of an exams factory. They used to start in year 9 and you'd get them through GCSE, through A-level, and so in and through and out. I had an amazing head of department. She'd previously taught in a London grammar school, and I was under her for 4 years, and then I had 2 years as her head of department, and she was promoted. My degree was ceramics metalwork. Well, do you know what? I'd gone through school, art being my main subject, the only subject I was really interested in, and then my degree was in ceramics and metalwork. And I got, in actual fact, to the end of my degree. And my dad said, what are you going to do to earn money? You can't just come home and live off us. And I sort of fell into teaching. But in actual fact, I really enjoy it. It's, yeah, good fun.
Lots of schools at the moment are going through their high-level design for curriculum for Wales, and the start of that journey is almost coming up with a vision, the school vision. Now, that's not a new idea, and I'm sure when you joined as head of department in 2003 with another art teacher who was also recently employed at that time, you must have had a vision, something you wanted to achieve. What was that vision when you started out?
Well, I suppose my vision was very much influenced by where I'd come from. And I said it was this upper school and it felt an exam factory, but it was very high standards and trying to impose those on the department. Yearly exhibitions showing off students' work and celebrating achievements. And working with the individuals and managing the team. We were a new team in actual fact when I started. Sarah and I started within a year of one another, and Holly was obviously there, and then we went through a phase of maternity leaves where we were all off hot seating it, as someone said, but yeah, once we were all back in, I think we all pulled together and we all had a shared vision of what we wanted to achieve and how we envisaged getting there.
Wow, that's a long time for a team to be working together and to be such a successful department. There's obviously a lot of respect for each other, and you've obviously found a way of working together that it is effective because your standards are so high. Some of the stories you were telling there about is not just what goes on in the classroom, but the exhibitions outside of the classroom. That's obviously really important, and it resonates with some of the discussions I've had with other people on these podcast programs before. You talked about shared vision, and maybe you take it for granted, but the fact that you're able to work together to develop this shared vision, and you've all got your responsibilities and take your own accountability for that shared vision, is really something to be admired. I wonder if you can elaborate on that vision a little bit, tell us something about your aims and so forth.
Yeah, trying to engage all, although you never actually achieve that, do you? But trying to engage pupils. But we were very much worked on skills and introducing processes. So Key Stage 3 was quite structured, trying to impart basic skills that students would need then to get onto GCSE, and then at GCSE level, again skills-based in that first year, drawing, painting, printmaking and 3D ceramics. And then with a view that those skills would allow students to be able to go on and produce whatever they foresaw their vision as. But yeah, upgrading skills, I think, is one of our main priorities.
You've obviously gave a lot of consideration to progression in art, and you mentioned those 4 disciplines within art itself. Did you explore or try to adopt other disciplines as well?
Yeah, well, do you know what? We try to be open. Our specialisms are ceramics, 3D and fine arts. Holly was a painter, or is a painter. We've tried to embrace photography. We'll turn our hand to anything. Just give it a go.
I think it's excellent that you were willing to explore disciplines outside of your comfort zone as a team and push that. But wonder, did that come from the pupils or was it from you as a team?
Definitely pupil driven, but with encouragement. I think when we do our coursework or folder reviews, we would identify strengths and always play to a pupil's strengths and sort of encourage them to do what they're good at and what they're interested in. I think that's the crux of it. If you find something that someone's interested in, they're willing to give it a try, and you've got that passion there that in actual fact you can then step back and guide rather than direct. So,
as teachers, we can often feel a need to be in control of everything all of the time. And what you've just talked about is balancing the difference between, or distinction between, the coaching and mentoring and moving along that continuum as appropriate to the needs of the pupils, but also developing that rapport, that professional relationship with the pupils and that professional creative working environment. You've hinted at curriculum design there, but what about challenge in the classroom, especially for the disciplines that maybe you and your colleagues are not experts in? How do you approach that professional development?
Lots of YouTubing and research and looking at different artists. I think in art, you find an artist that does something and it's that research and trying to have a go and recreate those techniques. YouTube comes in very handy for short tutorials. We're a close team and we do speak to one another often, and when you go and say, look, this pupil wants to do this, how would you go about it? And it's that discussion and seeing what the pupil comes back with, as well as, so it isn't just our responsibility, although inevitably it normally is. We will sort of discuss between ourselves, and we've got a new technician that's just started, and he seems he's very au fait with different printmaking techniques and has been able to guide us and direct us. So
that sounds fantastic. You're talking a lot there about the creative habits of mind. You're talking about collaboration, about being inquisitive, about being disciplined and developing techniques, and being imaginative and persistent. Do you get much of an opportunity to collaborate with other schools or other teachers?
We are part of the Art Networking Group, and I have to say that has been brilliant, and that was set up just before we went into the first lockdown. And I think you're very much in isolation within your department in school, but just to know that we can tap a quick email and you've got other practitioners there that are in the same subject and they know what's going on, just for a bit of reassurance and to know that you're all in the same boat, especially this year that's been really unsettled with exams and lockdown and all the rest of it, but just to get that reassurance that other heads of department are doing exactly the same, or they've interpreted the information that's come through from WGC in exactly the same way, has been reassuring.
You've described there many of the characteristics on our professional standards for teaching in Wales. You're talking about the standard for professional learning, taking effective pedagogy deeper, about innovation, about leadership, about the collaboration side of things, enabling effective pedagogy to spread. And you've obviously got really good pedagogy because your standards are really high, which has been demonstrated through excellent results year after year, not just for a certain group of learners, but for all types of learners that you teach. It's also obvious by walking around the school and seeing the displays on the walls. It's obvious when you go to the art exhibition which you have every year. The quality of the work is such a high standard. How do you keep challenging pupils, and how do you challenge pupils in the first place?
I think we set high standards, like you say. We set high standards. We often refer to ex-students' work. We'll be very open with students and say, look, this is an A-grade candidates folder, A folder, all through the different levels. I do think it's very much about working one-to-one with individuals and finding something they're passionate about, because I think even our lower end, a lower end student may struggle to draw accurately, but you give them a ball of clay and they can sculpt, or you give them a cutting tool and a piece of lino and they can produce a really, really strong print from that. So it's working with the individual and looking at their coursework folders and targeting the assessment objectives, making sure that our lower end all meets the 4 assessment objectives prior to assessment, and getting them through that way. We very much work on a one-to-one tutorial basis, and that's with every student, top end all the way through down to the bottom end. And we will, in each student's coursework folder, we will give them termly assessments and mark them against the assessment objectives, where they are currently and what they need to do to raise their mark in one of the assessment objectives. It might be that they haven't referred to an artist who has worked with similar subject or material. It might be that they need to increase their experimentation with materials, and it's just guiding them in the right direction. The headache comes when you're in class and you've got everyone doing completely different things and there's only one of you to get equipment out. And
some real practical advice there, but also touching upon the importance of exploring rather than just going for a product. But you've talked about challenge for the pupils. That's a real big challenge there for the teacher. How do you manage that?
Yeah, fraught at times, but I think where we have these one-to-one tutorial sessions with students, they have a clear aim of what they want to achieve. They know where all the equipment and everything is. It's just managing, tidying up, and then you're pulled in different directions. But in actual fact, it's the worst part of starting off, the worst part of everyone doing different things is starting off. As soon as students are started, they know them, where they're going with it, and there'll just be odd queries that we can deal with. I think it's just a case of not starting everyone all at once. We tend to start smaller numbers at a time that you can manage, make sure they know the process that they're using, make sure they know where equipment, everything is kept, and then once they're started and they've put it away, next lesson they're into a routine as such. And it's just staggering those start points so that it is a manageable task in the classroom. I work for Pearson, formerly Edexcel, and I'm team leader at A level and a general moderator at GCSE level. But I feel really lucky, in actual fact, that I've been out to hundreds of schools and I've been able to see very high standards. And I've been able to take that knowledge then back to the classroom. And in actual fact, I've learnt about new materials, new techniques, new processes. And I think a lot of that, actually, I've tried to bring back in to our department where possible. And it's just nice to get out and see what else is going on and get those ideas and be able to bring them back and share them with the rest of the departments. I know it's a great role. I might not agree with you in the height of June, in the middle of it when it's busy, but no, do you know what? It's invaluable, it really is. Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
You've explained some excellent examples there related to professional standards and very practical also. You touch upon the fact that you've seen lots of different processes and materials and so forth. I wonder if you have considered what that process actually is, what that creative process actually is.
I would say whatever material you're working with, the creative process is similar. We here in a Pant, and other schools might go about it differently, but we very much like to start with direct observation drawing, going off researching sources. In usual times, we'd try to get students out of the classroom and go on visits to galleries, museums or places of interest and recording what they see, whether that's through the camera or through direct observation and sketching. But we would then come back into the classroom and use those sources to start forming ideas. And it might be that students are inspired by something they've seen, that they've decided they want to create a 3D piece or textile piece, or we try to get students to look at other artists and designers to inform and inspire their emerging practical work. So it is a case of gathering research, forming ideas, going back to those ideas, taking the best ideas and thinking about refinement, modification, looking again at artists and designers. How have other people worked with a similar subject or material? What is it they've done that you'd like to include in your ideas, and moving forward that way? And I think that process is the same whether you're working with pencil and paper, painting, textiles, ceramics, sculpture. What we might find interesting, students may not, and it's trying to impart on them that it's their process and they drive it forwards, and through homework tasks, particularly at Key Stage 3, getting them to go out and carry out research and find artists that inspire them, find artworks that they like or subjects that they like, and then trying to work with them on that one-to-one basis to encourage them. And as soon, like I said earlier, I think as soon as students find something they're engaged in, the interest is sparked, we don't really seem to have problems motivating them. They will sort of engage in it and get the work completed.
Yeah.
Every year, pupils arrive from different feeder schools with a range of different experiences. When they join us at Pant, some have done printmaking, some haven't, and it's trying to level up that playing field so that in that first 2 years we give them all experience of printmaking, 3D media. And in terms of guiding them towards artist designers, we will suggest artists or designers that they could initially look at, but then you'll get some that want to go off and find others. And I think it's just being open to see what research comes back. I recently did an inset course during lockdown online, and it was about how do we put in parameters for research on the internet, because it is so open, and it made me think, in actual fact, in the past we haven't really set any parameters or say go off and look at one particular website, and realising the amount of information that is thrown up. So having come back to school since lockdown, when we have set research tasks, we have been quite specific actually to websites, so looking at the V&A Museum website in a particular section, so work that's found is specific rather than too general.
And again, having excellent professional standards, including leadership, must contribute to that.
I think we're a strong team. We're a small team. We work very closely together. I think we sit down and collaborate, and we all plan the schemes of work jointly. It isn't just my job and then imposing that on staff. We all sit down and decide what we want to achieve, and then we work together to achieve that. And in actual fact, it spreads the workload. We all take responsibility for an area of research or producing PowerPoints to support that scheme of work. But definitely communication between the team, and not being afraid to say, look, I don't know what to do here. I've got this pupil. What would you recommend? And we'll sit down and discuss. We're inside, no closed doors in the classroom. We're in and out of each other's rooms, and speaking to one another, and like I said, a shared aim, shared schemes of work, and one common endpoint or common start point, and a clear outcome that we're all aiming towards. Yeah.
You have a very successful department here, and you've mentioned research a few times during this interview. Have you taught the same thing 15 times, or do you teach something different every year? How do you approach research?
We use a very broad-based starting point. So, for example, we've used various themes, but this year and last year we've been using structures as our theme for GCSE, and it's giving students this broad-based starting point to go off and research what do they envisage as a structure or structures, and looking at man-made structures and structures within the natural world, and from that very broad-based research, finding an area of interest. So some students will be interested in the architecture, man-made structures, others will go down the natural form route. But I think it's that broad-based starting point, and everyone will find their own individual starting point within that framework.
Thank you for your time today, Joe. You've made leading a department sound really easy. And for those of us that have led a department, we know it's not. There's clear exemplification of high-level professional standards here, and your learners and the staff are benefiting enormously from it. You've talked about curriculum design, you've talked about progression, and you've talked about learner needs and the requirements for individual learners, all very topical conversations in light of Curriculum for Wales. Within this short interview, you're given so many golden nuggets of information, tips and tricks about how to lead a department that I'm sure there'll be many, many colleagues within the consortia that will be inspired and motivated by what you've said.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.